We can't overstep our boundary there. But I was like, when he thought about his retirement, and he spent all of those years dutifully saving, what would he think about this moment right now? And just a poof, gone. That really shook me. I was like, really questioning, what is the purpose of retirement?
Hello, and welcome back to CBS Spotlight, the podcast where we shine a light on the people and ideas helping others build more confident and more meaningful financial lives. I'm Eric Alvarado, along with my co-host, Mr. Ted Hikes. Mm-hmm. Our guest today is Liz Hand, owner of Pleasant Wealth, a financial planner and a coach who is redefining what it means to have a healthy relationship with money. Liz's work goes far beyond spreadsheets and projections. He actually helps women navigate life transitions, untangle money myths, and really step into financial clarity with confidence, compassion, and purpose. So Liz, welcome to the show. We appreciate that. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you. It's great to be here with you.
So Liz, you talked about obviously this mindset shift for your clients. And in that response that you gave us, you talked about your personal mindset shift. I would love to know what was the triggering event? What brought that on where you went from the I can't remember what you called it now, the Millers to being making like Millers to be a little bit more on the other side.
It was definitely an evolution that happened over several years. The moment I realized I was going into that shift was I was at an FPA conference and Carl Richards was on stage showing a dollar sign and asking people, what emotional response does this elicit from you? And I heard the people say like jealousy, anxiety, neutral, whatever. The word that came to my mind was responsibility. And I was like, well, that's kind of a weird word. Is that even an emotion? But as I reflected on how that began and where I was starting to uproot my belief system, it flashed back to 2014. A friend of mine passed away very suddenly in an accident. And it happened on my birthday. And there was something significant for me with birth and death happening at the same time. Also, I just happened to have presented earlier that year at his company for their 401k. And I'm there like on stage, save for your retirement. Think about that person for you in the future. So I'm doing that responsible one thing, getting people motivated to save for the future. And then recognizing that he never got to experience that. Simultaneously, I'm having multiple conversations with clients, right? And one of my retiring clients, he, worked really hard at the same company for decades. He steps into retirement and gets a diagnosis and has passed away within a year. I followed that money, and that money transferred twice thereafter, and then poof, gone. Like someone spent it so fast.
Oh my gosh.
And couldn't do anything as an advisor. Like we can't overstep our boundary there. But I was like, when he thought about his retirement, and he spent all of those years dutifully saving, what would he think about this moment right now? And just a poof, gone. That really shook me. I was like, really questioning, what is the purpose of retirement? On one hand, the responsible side of me is still there. Yes, many people live long lives. And so having a paycheck ready for yourself for the time where you say, I'm no longer going to work, or my body says I'm no longer work, or my mind keeps me from being able to work. That's important. And we can't forget today. Like, I think I just so over-indexed on the other side that it was such a wake-up call for me to think, I'm not guaranteed tomorrow. So what do I want to do with the resources I have now, instead of acting like Liz at 60 is the only one that exists?
That's interesting. And this is slightly off topic, but I saw last night, I was watching, I can't remember what I was watching. Oh, it was on LinkedIn. And it had like this young guy from Australia interviewing another young guy. And he said, I will give you $10 million. Do you want $10 million? The guy says, yeah, I want $10 million. The only caveat is you can't wake up tomorrow, right? You won't wake up tomorrow. And he's like, no, I don't want $10 million. And it's very simple, but it's like today only matters. And all of the things that you've accumulated only matter if you have tomorrow. If you don't have tomorrow, who really cares? Right. Like it's once it's gone, it's
Right.
Right.
gone. So very interesting.
Mhm. I really think it shifts the dynamic of financial planning to hold the future and the present a lot more in tandem. And you have to get super comfortable as an advisor to be willing to stay there because I think a lot of advisors are also this responsible one. They're the ones that are always looking to the future for the what ifs and the possible things that will go wrong for a client. And so they're trying to maneuver the insurance and the allocations and the tax strategies to pave the way for that time. And so for advisors to get more present to today and feel comfortable with their clients taking chunks out of their portfolio that it may exceed the recommended rate. And if the client is willing to take on that risk, is the advisor willing to be with that? Each advisor has to make their own decision about that process and how they enter that conversation thoughtfully. But it's one that I am more and more willing to have with clients because I can't say that they're going to turn 100
Right.
or 90 or 85 or
Right. It's, I mean, I've been working, for the last 4 years exclusively with RIAs, financial advisors. And even in that short amount of time where that's been my focus, I've seen a very big shift from probability of success, probability of success, probability of success to folks that I don't think have embraced it and have developed the idea the way that you have in such a thoughtful, in-depth way. But I've definitely seen a shift from the advisors that I work with. It's a little more about, yes, probability of success is still important. We can't ignore that. But we also need to make sure that our clients enjoy these years that they've spent 65, or 45 years since they got out of college or whatever it was, working towards. Like when we can relax, we not work. We don't have to get up every morning. So it's an interesting shift. You just happen to be, I think, light years ahead of most advisors that we talk to.
If money anxiety had a personality, what would it be like, and how would Dewey, I guess, kindly quiet it?
hmm Yeah, it's funny that the question that Carl had posed is kind of similar to this, where he showed the dollar sign. And so when I think about responsibility being my answer, and as I've dug into that and like the layers of it, I think embarrassment really is the key, like personality trait that most people are trying to avoid. This embarrassment can happen just by making the wrong move, whether that's socially or formally in the structure or like something that sets us up poorly for the future. So I would say that embarrassment is like the key personality piece. And how do we shift that? It's just more and more comfortable with ourselves and not letting embarrassment take the stage. Because as soon as you let embarrassment take over, it very quickly trips to overwhelm and over planning and anxiety and all the things stack up on that. So that comes with a lot of self trust. It comes with a lot of trust of others. And it comes with a lot of trust in like that there is a structure beyond us that I don't have to maintain, be that a higher power or nature or God, however you like to reference that.
Mhm.
But
Yeah. I mean, it seems like there's a lot of education behind that, right? To be able to like, oh, it's okay to like, kind of thing to walk people down there because like you said, that embarrassment piece, it is tough because especially, you don't want to make yourself look like a fool in front of others and your family or whatever. Like, oh gosh, you were so smart to this point, and all of a sudden you made that little shift, and it's like, oh gosh.
yeah.
So
I think I read once that embarrassment, the root word, and I might not be right, so someone fact checking me, go for it. And then put it in the
Yeah.
comments. I think I read that the root word of embarrassment is noose, which is
Oh,
interesting.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's
Like,
wow.
and you think about how often your embarrassment gets triggered when something doesn't go right, where you don't look quite the way that you want to look, where you slip up in your words or make a little flub or didn't consider someone. Yeah, that's that's an extreme place to go. And actually, furthermore, why I work with women, I think that embarrassment thing gets triggered so frequently because of the way that women have been kind of like societally expected to move in the world, where there's a lot of consideration about what's happening everywhere else. before you take a step, which shows up in the way that she uses money.
Yeah. It makes them overthink all the time, right? Like just,
Exactly.
yeah, crazy.
It's a lot about, shifting of mindsets and the anxiety that money can cause. I'm curious, like if you could pick, and it doesn't have to be your greatest success, but one success story with a client that you're maybe most proud of, where you've gotten them to make this mindset shift. That's hard for me to say. And then I'd love to know, like, how has it enhanced their lives, like as they've moved forward in the retirement process? How have you seen that mindset shift really, impact them in a positive way?
Yeah, I think I'll blend some stories together just so that for client anonymity, as they say. What I've seen is a client couple that's very constrained in how they spend their dollars. The way that their money came to me was it made sense why they felt constrained because of the setup of their money. Their structure was off with money. So we adjusted the structure and it took, a couple of years and they're starting to get a cash flow. And they sent me a picture of a refrigerator that they bought. Which I always ask my clients to send me pictures of what they buy because it's a moment for them. Like
That's cool.
It's like a little milestone threshold that they've crossed, and they need somebody to be excited about it with them. And it might be that their kids are like, mom and dad, so lame. Just go buy the stupid refrigerator. But for me, what I noticed was that was like step one. And then I saw a new lawnmower. And then I saw a bigger vacation. And it's just like these little permission slips that they give themselves over time. But it started with a refrigerator. Yeah.
Crazy. Adulting.
I know.
Oh, man. Well, on the flip side, have you had somebody, I guess, take it too far where you've had to kind of like, use brakes?
Yeah, there was a situation where I got uncomfortable. And granted, I will say that this was before I had my own like shift with money. So I don't know. It's a question mark in my mind of whether I was being the overly performative financial planner or if I was really letting them if it would have been okay. And it was just like a pattern of spending that included 2 generations. Again, I'm mixing up stories, so if this sounds like any specific person, I'm blending a couple of stories. They had multiple generations where they were doing an event for each of them. And the events continued over time, and the spending was like their spending ended up being over that 4% rule. However, people like to sit at that rule. Let's get a debate about that. Like consistently over 3 years. And I had a moment where I felt uncomfortable in the meeting, and I wish honestly that I could go back to that moment and offer it differently because I noticed the client engagement shifted to where they no longer had this sense of felt freedom. And how I would have approached that today is not to say you can't spend, like we can't keep doing this, which is not exactly the words that I used, but it was kind of a reactive like, oh my goodness, I don't know if we can keep doing this. What I wished I would have done in that moment would have been to say, okay, let's look at all of your priorities. You've got this priority and that priority and this priority, which truly that's all that money problems are is too many priorities. Right now, you're prioritizing this, and it's going to constrain these 2 in the future. How does that land for you? Is that what you want? And put it back to them as continuing to give themselves permission versus taking over the wheel and saying like, putting doubt in the space again. Because it has taken a couple of years for that relationship to get back to the place of more open and expansive. And that's just learning I had to do over time. But as far as like overspending, I think my actual philosophy with the make do like the Millers mindset is that person will never let themselves go too far. They will always preserve some sort of money because it is ingrained in like their bones, the generational piece of that. What kind of response do you guys have to that?
I mean, I think it's interesting. I think it's the reflective nature with which you looked at it is very interesting to me, just in that, you recognize where you were at the time and where you are today, and how you might have
Hmm.
answered that or approached that situation differently.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you learned,
Right.
along the
And
way. Mm.
it sounds like ultimately you kept them in the right space, but you're learning through this process too. It sounds like as you go, how to better, engage with your clients. I'm very curious, and you can answer this or not answer this, but have you seen a mindset shift with the next generation, right? Like, as you're working with these clients that are in approaching retirement, into retirement, have you had any situations where you've maybe had kids that are like, and I don't know how much engagement you have with that next generation, but they're like, whoa, mom and dad are now, they're starting to buy all this stuff, or has that been positive? And I'll tell you why I ask, because my dad, Midwest kid, like successful physician, very, very successful. He did not spend money until he was probably 60 years old, and he retired at 50. He ended up passing away at like 72, right? So there was a very short window where he got to really enjoy life. And our approach as a family has always been, you have plenty of money, you should spend it. Like, saving for us is not the goal, it's enjoying this part of your life. I'm curious if you have any kind of examples where kids were either completely on board or maybe they weren't on board.
Yeah, I think just to kind of take a step back with that, the greatest generation was so tight to the chest about money that, and using this mindset, their children were shocked when they got large
Yeah.
inheritances. Like, oh my gosh, I thought for sure I was going to have to help my parents, but oh
Mhm.
no, they've got seven figures. This, the baby boomer generation, I think, has done a lot better job of being a little bit more open with it. And so I think, kind of to what you're saying, there is a little bit more insight to how much money is there. And I hear a lot more of like, spend your money. This is your money. This is not our money, which I think is healthy because it, properly aligns a person with their own money and not the generational burden then of trying to replicate the type of inheritance they received to the next generation. I do see, depending on the personality of the child, sometimes they have big opinions on the structure of how the money is done. I'm sure you've heard people talk about that, where it's like, you should be investing in this specific way and you don't need your advisor and all of the fees. And that's well and good. Oftentimes I find that, again, the children are using an accumulation mindset to try to help their parents invest for a decumulation period, and they just don't go together. They are different ways of approaching money. And so the methods, the investing, the multiple, you still use diversification, but it's different for the retirement years. And that's where I see there's like a myth and an over opinion, and the way that you kind of can sometimes get between parents and kids.
So Liz, interesting story. I mean, so you worked with that. I guess have you had any really good or interesting intergenerational referrals? Obviously the parents you're working with now. Hey, can you work with my kid? Kind of situation, or what? So.
Hmm. The referrals I've been getting lately are actually a little different than that. I have
Oh,
been,
really?
because I've been working with, 50s, 60s, sometimes mid 40s. The referrals I've been getting lately is actually parents of mothers of some of my clients, which is kind of fun because I have been working on this space as helping women and couples really open up their mindset around feeling more free with the money that they've accumulated, that they look to their parent and they're like, hold up, I'm going to go sit in with that parent's advisor. Are you listening to her? She needs X. And then really encouraging their mom or their parents to come and work with me and just see how it's different. And that's been kind of a fun, unexpected, I remember like a couple of years ago, I had a couple of posts where I would say something like, "Your mom would love working with me," and this year has proved that.
Yeah, that's
How does that
awesome.
first meeting go? I mean, I'm just curious, like because obviously, if they're referring them to you because of this mindset shift that you're working through them with, and they know that the advisor that their parents are working with or their mother's working with is not taking a similar approach. Can you give us a little insight? And it doesn't have to be obviously direct insight into how that kind of first meeting goes with a client like that when they come over to talk to you.
Yeah, it's really interesting. It is different because the adult child is really selling me, and
Mm.
I, as every other good Midwestern girl, I am uncomfortable with that amount of praise. Um,
Mhm. Yeah.
but it's so helpful because they're like, "Oh yeah, and then this is what you do," and that's the kind of conversation. Isn't Liz so great? Isn't Clinton so great? So it is kind of funny because the the whole encouraging of why they would want to work with me
Mm.
is off of my plate. It's that person's kind of selling the process. I'm just telling them what the next steps are. Um, and usually their adult child has already vetted to see if they're a good fit for me based on the amount of money that they've saved, et cetera, et cetera.
Mm.
So just
Mhm.
the process is much more we're doing this than exploratory and lots of questions.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Yeah, but also the other thing that's been interesting that's come from these kind of more open conversations, intergenerational conversations, is with the coaching work that I've done, I'm also willing to have so what naturally happens within families because we care for each other, our money can get kind of blended and the boundaries aren't super clear. And so that's something I'm usually watching for in a family and having conversations with. So
That's where a lot of
I found my
problems arise, right? Between siblings and things.
it is. And actually, like this responsible one mindset, you're always caring for other people. So when you have multiple people like reaching across and trying to care for the other person, nobody feels good about their money. And so getting those boundaries more clearly stated is really helpful. So I have found that with my coaching skill set, I've been able to bring that into family conversations between parent and child where something is um, occurring that they're negotiating or noticing that the parent still has too much access to the child's financial situation, just and I say child, adult child, giving them permission to let go of that over responsibility for other people, letting them have their own experience, and then that frees up a family system too, which is really neat. And I'm curious to see how that impact has over the next couple of decades with this business.
Oh yeah, I think those boundaries are huge, right? I think those are something that back then it was there was no boundaries and it kind of related to issues, and now it's like you can set those, you know, as you go along, so they don't come up to be issues that mushroom at the end when down the road. So it's excellent. Liz, thank you so much for coming back and joining with us today. Your insights, your warmth, your perspective really truly remind us that financial planning doesn't have to feel intimidating. It can feel supportive, empowering, and of course, deeply personal. I love how you've shown that money isn't just about reaching milestones. It's about, building confidence, really honoring values and creating space for life that you can actually and actually want to live. From breaking down myths to celebrating overlooked wins, all that good stuff. So for our listeners, if today's conversation resonated with you, I encourage you to reflect on one small step that you can take away this week to bring more ease and even more joy to your own lives, and especially your relationship with money. So thank you for tuning in to CBS Spotlight. If you enjoyed this episode, please share it with someone who might need a little financial encouragement today. And don't forget to subscribe so you never miss another conversation. So until next time, stay curious and keep building a life that you're excited about. This has been CBS Spotlight. Thank you.